The sun was starting to dip behind the Texas horizon when the Road Guardians Motorcycle Club pulled over near an old, fading gas station. They were tough-looking men, leather jackets heavy with patches, but their hearts were kinder than their appearance suggested. As they talked and stretched their legs, the quiet of the dusty highway was suddenly broken by the sound of small, frantic footsteps. A little girl, barefoot, shaking, breathless, ran toward them as fast as she could. Her tiny hands trembled, and her tear-stained face showed pure terror. She could barely speak when she reached them. Hawk, the leader of the group, crouched down immediately. He was huge, broad shoulders, long beard, sharp eyes, but his voice softened when he saw her condition. Hey, slow down, sweetheart. What happened? He asked. The girl swallowed hard, trying to catch her breath, and then the words spilled out in a desperate cry. Please help. They're beating my mama. The bikers fell silent, glancing at one another with alarm and anger rising in their eyes. Hawk stood up straight, nodding once. Show us, he said firmly. The little girl pointed toward a rundown trailer hidden behind tall weeds and rusted metal scraps. The bikers wasted no time. Engines roared to life, echoing across the empty road as they followed the girl. When they reached the trailer, the sound of shouting inside made every man tense. Hawk motioned for two bikers to stay with the girl, while he and the others approached the door. He pushed it open without hesitation. Inside, a terrified woman cowered against the wall while two men towered over her, shouting and waving their arms aggressively. Hawk stepped in with a calm but unshakable presence. Enough, he said, his voice low but full of authority. The two men turned, startled to see a group of bikers filling the doorway. One of them tried to speak, but Hawk raised a hand. Let her go. Now. His tone left no room for argument. The men backed away, muttering excuses, but the bikers weren't interested in explanations. They escorted the woman outside, where her daughter immediately ran into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Hawk watched quietly as the mother held her little girl close. Once they reached safety, the bikers took the mother and daughter to a nearby diner that the club frequently visited. The owner, a kind woman named Maria, immediately brought out hot meals, clean water, and blankets. The little girl ate slowly, still shaken but comforted by the presence of the bikers surrounding her like a protective shield. Hawk stayed nearby, not wanting to overwhelm her, but making sure she knew she wasn't alone anymore. The mother, still trembling, whispered her gratitude over and over, tears slipping down her cheeks. Later that night, when things finally calmed, the little girl approached Hawk as he sat outside on the wooden steps of the diner. The neon lights hummed softly above them. She tugged at his sleeve, and he turned to her with a gentle smile. Her voice was small, almost fragile, but full of sincerity as she said, "Thank you, you saved my mama." Hawk felt a tightness in his chest at her words. He didn't say much, he simply placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. For the first time in months, the little girl smiled, safe at last. The morning was warm and quiet as Harold Bennett made his slow walk along the old fence line on his ranch in New Mexico. The retired rancher had lived alone for years, his days filled with simple routines and chores that kept him steady. But that morning, something felt different. As he scanned the land, he noticed a faint movement near a cactus patch. At first, he thought it might be a small animal or the wind pushing dry brush, but something in his gut told him to look closer. He stepped toward it carefully, curiosity turning to concern. As he approached, Harold's heart dropped. Curled in the dust was a small Apache boy, frail and trembling, no more than 7 years old. His cheeks were sunken, his skin dry and cracked from the desert air, and his clothes torn from days of struggle. The boy tried to lift his head but didn't have the strength. Harold didn't waste a second. He knelt, gently lifted the child into his arms, and carried him toward his truck. The boy's weight, or lack of it, sent a cold sadness through Harold's chest. He had never seen a child so close to collapse. Back at the ranch house, Harold moved quickly but carefully. He made warm soup, wrapped the boy in soft blankets, and placed him near the fireplace. The child didn't speak, but his eyes followed Harold in silent fear. Harold sat beside him through the entire night, checking his breathing, coaxing him to take small sips of broth, and whispering reassuring words. The boy flinched at every sudden sound, showing signs of deep exhaustion and something far heavier, trauma. Harold didn't ask questions. Right now, the child needed safety more than answers. Over the next few days, the boy slowly regained strength. He walked a little, ate small meals, and slept deeply. But he still didn't speak, not a single word. Harold noticed the way he watched the door, the way he startled at distant noises, and how tightly he clung to the blanket Harold had given him. The rancher tried gently to learn his name, but the boy simply lowered his eyes and stayed silent. Harold decided not to push. Somewhere inside, he felt the child would speak when he was ready. Until then, Harold provided quiet care and patience. 4 days after the rescue, just as the sun began to rise over the mountains, a sudden knock echoed through Harold's house. It was unusual, he rarely received visitors. Harold wiped his hands on a towel and opened the door. His breath caught in his throat. Standing there were 3 Apache women, each wearing traditional shawls woven with vibrant colors. Their faces were lined with exhaustion and worry, but their eyes held something deeper, hope. They looked at Harold as though he held the answer to a prayer they had whispered for days. One of the women stepped forward, her voice trembling but steady enough to speak. "Sir, you have our child," she said softly. Harold felt the meaning of her words settle heavily on his heart. Everything suddenly made sense: the boy's fear, his silence, his desperate condition. The women explained that the boy had wandered off after a chaotic event in their community and had been missing for nearly a week. They had searched every trail, every creek, every shadow of the desert. Tears filled their eyes as they saw the boy safe inside Harold's home. And just like that, the truth of his disappearance finally came to light.